What you didn't know about John R. Tolkien. O.H.N.R. Tolkien, a British novelist, writer, and professor, is best known for his fantasy novels that deal with legends and news that have long been reported by peoples in all times and places. His beginning was through the novel The Hobbit, and then came his most famous novel, The Lord of the Rings, biography of John R. Tolkien. John Ronald Reuel Tolkien could not have imagined that the bedtime stories he was telling his children would become one of the most famous and would make him an international novelist. Tolkien presented his most famous novels, The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings, which were a collection of letters addressed to his children. Most of his novels were of a fictional nature, dealing with the conflict between good and evil based on the heritage of peoples and their myths related to this subject, in particular the experience of the German peoples and their traces of myths, poetry, literature and others. In addition to his novels, he presented a series of stories, most of which were related to fantasy and legends. Translated his most famous epic, Lord of the Rings, it has been translated into 25 languages around the world and has often been chosen among the most popular novels of the 20th century, in addition to both Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit being cinematically the beginnings of John R. Tolkien. John Ronald Reuel Tolkien was born in Bloemfontein, South Africa, on January 3, 1892, to his father, Arthur Tolkien. The most famous sayings of John R. Tolkien: if most of us would prefer food, joy, and songs to gold, this world would be better. Do not spoil the joy with haste. Courage will be the best to face the storm that is near. This is the hope I bring to you. Those who have little faith say goodbye when the road gets dark. There are still many things I have not yet seen, each forest and each spring its different greens. The main purpose of life for each one of us is to increase our knowledge of God according to our ability and by all possible means, so that we can be more praised and thankful through Him. The death of John R. Tolkien. Tolkien retired from public service in 1959 and began publishing essays and poetry collections, such as Tree and Leaf and The Fictional Smith of Woden Major. His wife Edith died in 1971, and Tolkien died on September 2, 1973, at the age of 81. Achievements of John R. Tolkien.
Tolkien continued his specialization in linguistics, as he entered the University of Leeds in 1920, and after several years, became a professor at Oxford University, where he formed a writing group called Inklings, which included both C.S. Lewis and Owen Barfield. While Tolkien was preparing for one of his articles, he improvised a few lines about The Hobbit.
His fictional novel, The Hobbit, was published in 1937, about the adventure of Bilbo Baggins, the little hobbit, with big feet covered in fur, and classified as a children's book, although Tolkien was not originally intended for this book for children, and he painted more than 100 paintings to support and illustrate his account. During the years while working on cultural publications, Tolkien developed what would later be considered his most prominent novel as The Lord of the Rings series, based in part on some ancient European myths as well as their maps, monuments, and languages. Tolkien released the first part of his series in 1954. The Fellowship of the Ring was published the following year in 1955, The Two Towers, and The Return of the King, where the book constituted for readers a work of literature rich in news of elves, goblins, talking trees, as well as all kinds of fictional creatures, including witches such as Gandalf and the dwarf. While his novels received their share of criticism, the influx of reviewers and regular readers into Tolkien's world increased, making Tolkien's books the best-selling and most popular in the world, while some of his fans founded the Tolkien Club and taught his fictional language.
The series The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings were ranked among the most popular books in the world. with tens of millions of copies sold around the world, while the Lord of the Rings series was produced as part of a series of cinematic films that gained high audience popularity, directed by Peter Jackson, starring Sir Ian McKellen as the wizard Gandalf, Elijah Wood, and Kate Blanchett in addition to Viggo Mortensen. Director Jackson directed the Hobbit series in a cinematic trilogy, starring Martin Freeman as Bilbo Baggins alongside Ian McKellen as Gandalf, the first part of which was shown in late 2012. Tolkien's son Christopher republished a collection of unfinished works around the time his father died, including Silmarillion and the Children of Hurin, while The Art of the Hobbit was published in 2012 that celebrated the 75th anniversary of The Hobbit by publishing illustrations by Tolkien, drawn by Tolkien. Thanks for watching. I hope to be your watch. Support me with a like and a subscription.